Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us once again, one of my regulars I haven't had on for a while. I've had an embarrassment of bookings also, but the friend that I'm going to have on here, a lot of times they call us Greg Squared, and he's had some technical problems, but those are behind us now. And if you guessed Greg Mannarino or Gregory Mannarino, I'm Greg Hunter, then you guessed right, Gregory Mannarino from TradersChoice.net. How you doing today?
Greg, I am doing great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, listen, last week you opened up your video with something that was, you remind me of a super important point that even, that we get kind of jaded to and that we kind of look past, and that you opened up your video by saying something like there's an incredible amount of off-the-charts fraud going in, and your point is to prop up the system, and you put out a red alert last week talking about, and that was the start of your video. How much fraud is being employed to prop up the system? Do you think people are getting that when they're watching the mainstream media, CNBC, Fox Business, whatever?
Absolutely not. And the reason is because all of these financial channels, they have something to sell people, and that is this illusion. Greg, I mean, it's just so evident that the amount of fraud across the board is epic. We've never seen anything like this before. Even during the credit derivatives bubble, the last one that devastated the global economy. And it's just gotten much, much worse. Nothing has changed here. And we know this for a fact that the world central banks, we just understand that the ECB is going negative with interest rates. They're going to be charging people to keep cash in these banks. So they're very desperate here. This just shows you that their goal is to prop things up. They don't care what reality is. It's distortions. That's all they're doing here. And what is that allowing to happen? A cascade of events here. Again, the Wall Street banks, the 1%ers, the 2%ers are allowed to speculate in this market, driving up this bubble here. We are now in the biggest, forget about the last credit derivatives bubble. It's much, much worse now. And this is, again, just distortions being created by the world central banks on purpose. So just that one metric is allowing fraud to bleed across every aspect and every asset class across the spectrum.
Well, the Fed is part of the fraud. I mean, you take a look at they say they're tapering. To your point, you say there's no taper. And that they may be tapering on paper, and they're not buying bonds, but they're financing the bond buying in places like Belgium with Euroclear and whatever. Somebody's buying the bond. So, if technically, yes, there's a taper, but really no, because to your point, the interest rates would go up. That would kill the economy, would it not? I mean, they cannot do this taper thing.
No, they can't do it. There is no taper. I've gone over this 1,000 million times. Absolute zero. There's no proof that they're doing anything at all. There's no transparency here. They cannot and will not allow interest rates to rise. And it's just the most basic concept that I think people just don't understand. As much as I talk about it, the Federal Reserve, again, has no magical powers. They're not wizards or warlocks or whatever. They can't just say, we're going to keep interest rates low, everyone. They have to get into the market. And they have to make it happen. So how are they doing it? By buying bonds through one way or the other, period. So whatever talk is coming out of their mouth is just garbage. And again, it's all part of the grand fraud or manipulation that is going on here. They will continue to do this, Greg, until the bitter end, because there's no alternative for them. Again, and this goes back to something I think we've discussed here. That the 2008 credit derivatives bubble, that was the party over moment. This is nothing. This is nothing but a terminal side effect, and there's no way out of it. Zero.
We had the first quarter. I brought this up, and I want to get your take on this. And I think it's a stunning drop. I mean, 2.6% was the headline, the official number in the fourth quarter. And then they, said it was a 1/10% growth in the first quarter. And then they came out and said it's a negative 1% growth. And then J.P. Morgan, oddly enough, came out last week and said, it was really 1.6% negative growth. Wow, that's over 4% plunge quarter to quarter, and yet the government is saying, oh, we're going to have positive numbers in the second quarter. I'm thinking, what? What say you?
Well, again, this goes back to the video that you alluded to that I had done recently. All we need to do, Greg, and for everyone out there that might be listening to this, is look at one thing only, and that is the velocity of money here. What is the velocity of money? Just real quick, it's the rate at which cash is moving through an economy. Without this one metric, without cash moving through an economy, you have zero growth. None. Now, we are at historic lows. We've never been here before. This is uncharted territory with regard to the money velocity. So, please, someone explain to everyone, or me or you, Greg, how we can have any growth at all with negative money velocity. It doesn't make any sense. It can't happen. It's part of the fraud. I mean, seriously, that is what is going on here. What is being force-fed to everyone, to the general public who are being made zombies. I mean, I'm telling you, Greg, the zombie apocalypse is real.
Andy Hoffman, I had him on last week. He brought up a really important point, and he says the big ring the bell moment is when the Fed comes out and says, we got to stop the taper, or we're going to pause the taper, or we're going to reverse the taper. And when they feel they have to overtly, not covertly like they're doing now, when they have to overtly say we're doing something, he says that's when the bell's going to ring and the wheels are going to start coming off. What do you say? What do you think about that?
I think he's got a point here, and I tell you, I believe that when the ECB just recently made their historic move to go negative in interest rates, I really believe that this would be equity negative, but it turned out not to be. I still think the market overall is anticipating all the central banks to keep this stock market propped up, and everyone is trying to ride this wave. The reality has not set in, and I think Andy has a point here. It's very possible that if the Federal Reserve does something, and I know they will, I believe you agree with me here, that they will do things that we haven't even thought of yet to keep this propped up, whether it's announcing a taper of the no taper or some other mechanism here. And at one point, this is undoubtedly going to rattle the markets. The market has to say at one point, hey, what is really going on here? But I really want people to understand that they shouldn't be looking at the stock market. And a lot of people, most people stare at it and focus here on the equity markets when they're trying to gauge what's going to happen. I don't do that. Personally, I think we need to look at the debt market or the bond market. That's where everything is going to happen first. That's where the actual implosion of the system, in my opinion, is going to begin, because that is the biggest bubble of them all, Greg. And then that bursts. Every other subsequent bubble is going to collapse with it.
I know you're watching what's going on last week with Iraq, which is being invaded by the people we armed in Syria. And now Iran is going to help the Iraqi government, which is Shia, and then the Sunnis are the invaders, the Al-Qaeda. It's the Hatfields and McCoys. My mind is, it's going to blow up with the craziness that's going on over in the Middle East. When do we have a party over moment over there? Could this be the continuation, or the bell ringing, or in 2008 you say it was a party over a moment and they've kind of extended the party? When is the extended party going to end? Could this be one of the things that could end the extended party after the party's already been over since 2008?
Interesting. I think that this is something, again, that we've talked about and a lot of people talk about here. What we're witnessing now, in many ways, is something that's almost kind of a setup here. They're letting this happen on purpose here. And let me put this into perspective for people to understand here. In the United States, and I've gone over this many times, in fact, in my last video here, we have an economy that needs to borrow cash into existence. It's built upon the acquisition of debt, period. This cash needs to be borrowed into existence and then dispersed. They don't even care where it goes. That's the truth. Because if this mechanism becomes impeded in any way, the whole thing will collapse. We do not have a wealth-based economic model. We have a debt-based economic model. Now, with that said, if you were to go back on history, Greg, and, I hate to have to say this as an American citizen, but it's a fact, and anyone can research this. The United States of America has been involved in more military conflicts than every other developed nation combined multiple fold. Why? It's the mechanism, the US dollar being the world reserve currency, needing to be borrowed into existence and then spent. So the propagation of war is paramount with this type of an economic model. So what I said earlier was they allowed this system to develop out there and this whole thing to come apart because I believe this is part of the scheme to keep it propped up. There is going to be bombs falling over there, and I'll go over why that in a moment. This is part of their mechanism, again, Greg, to borrow cash into existence and then spend it and disperse it no matter where it goes. And the propagation of war, again, is being used here as a mechanism because it's the most expensive thing in human endeavor, war. So, go out there and spend millions upon millions on missiles that they're going to drop and bombs that they're going to drop and, running the military machine. That's what this is here. And this is something that I think you and I have spoken about. A lot of people understand how this system works. It's the politics of money. It's the truth. That's the title of my book. As you know, this is a mechanism, a very dastardly and evil mechanism, but the propagation of war is, again, their next step in keeping this propped up. What also people need to understand here, and, most people just don't get it, but the United States military is mandated to protect the oil of OPEC nations. Iraq is an OPEC nation. We have to get in there and do something here. So it's a setup. Whole thing, absolutely complete setup to keep this propped up. And this is being done here in collusion with the Federal Reserve and our policymakers and the entire military industrial complex. This has to be understood for what it is. And again, we all know, we knew for a very long time that war was in the cards, and we're starting to see it unfold now.
And you're giving the mechanical dollar reason why war is in the cards, and you're saying that, and plus, I guess the frantic, the urgency of we have to spend this money now, and people will just say, oh, okay, well, there won't be like the debt ceiling fight or something like that. It'll be something that is urgent, and it has to be done immediately, and it have to be done because I thought it was funny that Obama said, basically, he said, well, I'm going to consult with Congress. I mean, he's not going to have somebody over there immediately trying to save Iraq. I'm going to consult with Congress, and I'll talk. He didn't consult over Bergdahl, but that's a minor story compared to this, global war. But all of a sudden, he's going to consult with Congress and take his time. And they're beheading people over there in northern Iraq. They're kneeling people down on the side of the road and putting a bullet in the back of their head. And they stole millions of dollars out of the bank up there, one bank, $400 and some odd million to fund themselves, I guess. So I don't understand why the warthogs aren't, and the F-16s and the F-15s aren't flying out of Bahrain and Saudi Arabia to whack these guys. They know where they are. I mean, it's not even that big of an army, up there, but still growing.
Here's the issue with this whole thing, Greg. They need to sell this. It's already being sold on the mainstream media to the average person out there. And what they're going to do is they're going to start showing on the mainstream media. They're going to start showing more brutal acts from these people. They're going to start to get the fear brewing in people's minds. And I would not be surprised. In fact, I'm very fearful of this, that we could have a false flag to get the American people to back another kinetic event over there, another war over there. This is, again, this has to happen. This is in defense of the petrodollar. For people out there who don't know what the petrodollar is, please educate yourself on this, because this is the basis of every single thing that is going on right now to defend the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, to defend the petrodollar. We have to get in there and do something. And I believe we started seeing some of this last week with the mainstream media out there selling this to the American people by pushing the fear button, getting people riled up. And if that's not enough to get the American people to back another war or something over there, there will be a false flag event that's going to get the American people to demand action be taken because they're afraid. It's always the same thing. We see this over and over and over again. And I sit here because I understand how it works. So I'm sitting here looking at it going, oh, my God, look what they're doing. They're doing the same thing again.
We armed them. We have been arming them. I've been talking about this for a couple of years, how we were arming them. Allegations are they had a gun running operation from Libya up to Syria. That was one of the allegations that keeps popping up, at least on the alternative media. And I've been saying John McCain went over, they got his picture taken, Senator John McCain, with a couple of top Al Qaeda people in Syria. And then now they've been basically beaten back by Assad, the Russians, and the Iranians, and now they're where can we go now? Let's go into Iraq. And and the mainstream media doesn't even bring up the fact we armed them, and their leader is somebody we let go. Their leader is a brutal weasel. And the mainstream media doesn't even mention it. Oh, yeah, we armed them, and their leader we had him in custody, and we let him go.
Yeah. Just going back real quick to government spending and GDP, this is all part of it, too. We understand that all of the cash that's going to be spent on what we're going to be doing over there, where they're going to get that cash, number one, it's going to be printed out of thin air. Number two, they're going to count it towards GDP. So maybe that's why they think GDP is going to pick up here. There's no doubt about it. This has been in the cards for a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, I think in one of the last chapters of my book, I talk about this. I talk about where this is going, how this is leading to war. And this is how we know, Greg, in my opinion, we're at the very, very end of this entire thing here. We have the European Central Bank, absolutely the most desperate move possible. That is to go negative interest rates here. The Federal Reserve will be following suit with something else. I don't know what. And then we got the propagation of war here to keep the dollar propped up. That's what this is. It's really the most scary, dastardly, evil mechanism that I can possibly imagine. I think that anyone can imagine. But that is what's going on here. The propagation of war is paramount right now in keeping the dollar propped up. But again, it won't last. It's an impossibility. It's a doomed currency. We know this. All of the fiat currencies of the world they've been doomed since the day they became fiat. And again, it all just lets us understand where the opportunities are and what we need to do here. And just in real quick here, so what does that tell us? We need to be getting away from the U.S. dollar, something you and I understand. A lot of people out there get it. But at the same time, we need to look for other opportunities too. I think that they're looking that they will keep the stock market propped up along with everything else. So I'm a trader here. I like to take advantage of it. So again, but the main opportunity that people need to understand, and they need to be doing this, is getting away from fiat currency. All of them.
A lot of people don't really understand how you work, and I just, without revealing too much about your personal stuff, you trade stocks. We know that, traderschoice.net. It's a free site. You charge nothing. You don't even take donations anymore. And you, I guess you're doing pretty good trading. And anyway, but you take your winnings off the table. Some of your winnings, and you convert them every month or every 2 months or whatever, and you put them into gold and silver, I guess mainly coins and small bars and things like that. Which brings me to my next question about gold and silver. They've been stepping on it, and with this news in Iraq, I think we probably have seen a low here in gold and silver, or am I reading this wrong? Is it going lower?
Well, I guess you're referring again here to the gross fraud, again, that is in these markets, in the paper derivatives markets. It's epic. But again, what does this mean? They can do anything they want. I can't even imagine. I don't trade these things. I so rarely trade them. As a matter of fact, recently I happened to, I did get involved in SLV. And people went crazy and they wrote to me because I posted on my site what I'm doing. They're like, oh my God, Greg, you say you never do this, but I had seen opportunity there, so I took advantage of it. But I'm afraid of these things because there's no price discovery. It's not real. They can do whatever they want with it. But it's my sincere hope, Greg, and I want everyone.
But you're not afraid of the physical.
Oh God, no. Okay. I think that's where we need to be. But But the paper derivatives is just fake.
GLD, SLV, stuff like that.
Yeah. But what I hope, and I'm really hoping that they keep suppressing this price, and I hope again it goes lower. Will it go lower? I have no idea. I think with the unfolding of events out there, we should see commodities rise, but they'll do whatever they want. We do not have a free market. We have a managed market. We understand this. And the price that's going to have to be paid for that is going to be beyond belief. But the opportunity lies in suppression. The longer they keep this suppressed, the better opportunities that we all have for those of us that get it to acquire this stuff in mass. And you're absolutely right. That is what I do. I trade these markets. I pull my profits out. Whammo. I allocate this into hard assets. And mostly that is physical silver. I mean, I've gone over this as well. I own all the metals, but I do believe that physical silver is the most undervalued of them all.
Gregory Mannarino, thank you for your wisdom. Good to have you back on. Gregory Mannarino, traderschoice.net. And I do have a copy of your book right here, which I held up, which I'll cut in there. I'll cover your face up and hold it up. It's The Politics of Money. When we first did an interview, you came out with your book and said, send it to me. And I thought, wow, but then I didn't hardly know who you were, but he's got a book, heck. And I read it, and it's some of the same stuff that you said 2 or 3 years ago when we started interviewing about we're leading towards war. You know, they're going to manipulate the markets, they're going to prop it up, they're going to do whatever it takes, things like that. That kind of happened, and it is happening. And I appreciate having you on. Gregory Mannarino, traderschoice.net, a totally free site. Gregory, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.